It's 1916, deep in the mud and chaos of the Western Front. The world's first industrialized war is raging, and soldiers live in a nightmare landscape of artillery, poison gas, and sleepless nights. Yet, amid that suffering, necessity sparked invention. Every man in those trenches became part engineer, part survivor. They built, adapted, and improvised gear that could keep them alive through the filth, the cold, and the endless bombardment. What's remarkable is that some of those survival hacks, developed more than a century ago, still work today. In fact, modern soldiers and survivalists still rely on the same principles born from those desperate days in the mud. The trench environment forced soldiers to innovate for survival. The trenches of World War I were brutal beyond imagination. Soldiers faced freezing rain, deep mud, rats, disease, and a constant lack of comfort. Equipment issued by the army rarely matched the needs of real trench life. That's where improvisation came in. British, French, and German troops began modifying standard gear or creating makeshift tools from scrap material. Anything to stay warm, dry, and alive. One of the simplest yet most effective innovations was the trench candle. Using a tin can, some sand, and melted wax, often scavenged from spent candles or food tins, soldiers made compact heat sources that could warm rations, dry socks, or keep hands from freezing. A single trench candle could burn for hours and fit into a pocket. Modern campers and preppers use the same trick today under the name hobo stove or survival candle. It works because wax burns slowly and steadily, and when mixed with sand, it regulates the flame to prevent rapid melting. If you want to try this, it's simple. Fill half a small tin with sand, pour melted candle wax over it, and insert a piece of string or cotton cloth as a wick. Once hardened, you'll have a long-burning portable heat source that works even in wet weather, just like the soldiers used on the front lines of the Somme. Waterproofing and weatherproofing were life-saving priorities, you know. The Western Front wasn't just cold, it was constantly soaked. Trench foot became a deadly epidemic caused by soldiers standing for days in icy water. To fight it, men turned to one of the simplest trench hacks ever recorded: greaseproofing. Soldiers rubbed their boots and even socks with animal fat, lard or axle grease to repel water. It sounds crude, but honestly, it worked. The thick oils filled the fabric pores, preventing moisture from seeping in. This old technique survives today under a more refined name: waterproofing treatment. Leatherworkers and outdoor gear experts still use wax or grease-based coatings for boots, gloves and canvas gear. You can do the same by warming up beeswax or natural grease and rubbing it into fabric or leather, then heating it gently to help it absorb. It's one of those small, practical skills that can make a world of difference when you're working outdoors or preparing for survival situations. During trench life, some soldiers even lined their boots with newspaper for insulation, a practice that's surprisingly effective. The layered paper traps air, which helps maintain warmth, and it can be replaced easily when wet. Modern outdoor enthusiasts still use this same method in emergencies when socks or liners fail. Improvised cooking gear was, honestly, absolutely essential for survival and morale. Hot meals, you know, were rare luxuries in the trenches. To get by, soldiers would turn ration tins, barbed wire stakes, and even empty shell casings into makeshift stoves and cooking gear. One of the cleverest creations was the trench cooker, a small, fuel-efficient stove that burned a mixture of candle wax and sawdust. It provided just enough heat to boil water or cook a small meal, all without revealing a soldier's position with smoke. This whole concept Well, it evolved into the portable SBIT or solid fuel stove, which is still used by soldiers and campers even today. The principle really remains the same: compact fuel, controlled flame, and minimal visibility. In survival scenarios, you can actually replicate this by packing sawdust into a tin and saturating it with melted wax. Once you light it, it burns long and steady, perfect for boiling water or heating food discreetly. The importance of food in trench life, honestly, can't be overstated. Soldiers often said that a warm meal could make the difference between despair and determination. And, the same principle applies to modern survival. Maintaining warmth, nutrition, and morale starts with mastering small, reliable sources of heat, the very techniques born in the trenches of the First World War. Light discipline and stealth techniques still guide modern fieldcraft, Trench warfare was really a game of visibility. A single spark or flash of light could, draw sniper fire in an instant. To counter this, soldiers developed low-visibility lighting using tin cans, mud, and small candles. They'd cover the flame with perforated lids or mud-coated slits, allowing just enough light to see without giving away their position. This principle, controlling light exposure, is still standard practice in modern special forces and survival training. Whether you're camping, hunting, or conducting night operations, shielding your light keeps you concealed and preserves night vision. You can actually replicate this by using red filters, directional covers, or simply positioning your light low to the ground. It's a timeless skill that came directly from the trenches. The soldiers' layering and insulation methods influenced modern cold-weather gear. The iconic image of a trench soldier wrapped in wool, canvas and greatcoat layers wasn't just for show. It was strategy. Cotton was avoided because it absorbed water and stayed wet. Instead, soldiers relied on wool, which remained insulating even when damp. They layered thin, breathable garments underneath to trap heat while allowing sweat to escape. Modern outdoor survival gear still follows this exact logic: base layer for moisture control, mid-layer for insulation, and outer layer for protection. The trench soldier's practical experience became the blueprint for every cold-weather clothing system used today, from mountaineers to Arctic explorers. To apply this in your own fieldcraft, always start with wool or synthetic base layers that wick moisture, add an insulating layer like fleece or wool, and finish with a weatherproof shell. It's the same wisdom that kept men alive in Flanders fields under freezing rain. The forgotten trench tools still hold lessons for survivalists today. The entrenching tool, a simple folding shovel, became a soldier's lifeline. It wasn't just for digging, it was used for defence, cooking, washing, and even medical emergencies. Its design was so versatile that modern militaries still issue updated versions of the same tool. The concept of multi-use equipment, tools that serve more than one purpose, originated here. For anyone interested in preparedness, the takeaway is clear. Rely on versatile gear that earns its place in your pack. The less you carry, the more skill must fill the gap. And the soldiers of the First World War proved that really ingenuity always outweighs equipment. The ingenuity of First World War soldiers proves that survival begins with adaptation. From wax candles to greaseproof boots and makeshift stoves, the Great War's trenches were a proving ground for human resourcefulness. These weren't inventions born in comfort. They were forged under shellfire and scarcity. Yet, more than a century later, their principles endure in every survival manual, soldier's kit, and outdoor guide. If you value practical history and timeless skills, study the trench hacks of the First World War. Try making a survival candle, waterproofing your boots, or building a small wax stove. You'll be walking in the footsteps of men who redefined resilience under the harshest conditions imaginable. If this deep dive into forgotten wartime ingenuity inspired you, subscribe to Echoes of Valor and share this video with fellow history and survival enthusiasts. Because the greatest lessons of history aren't just about what was lost, they're about what still works.